truths. For more than 20 years and spanning 3 continents, Chaz Perez has created everlasting, defining moments for audiences through his messages and work in the nonprofit sector. His leadership and speaking touched the lives of terrorists, slave traders, orphans, addicts, students, and leaders of many different spheres of influence in the world. Some people talk about changing the world. Chaz is living it through what he calls servant leadership. He is a man obsessed with watching things grow. His insatiable curiosity has led him to some dangerous and beautiful places, situations in the world, and has created an arsenal of endless stories, intriguing stories for him to tell. His unique style of story blending creates a new experience which his listeners can draw power from and bring forth change. Today, he is practicing for a TEDx speech entitled Linchpin Innovators. Linchpin Innovators, Chaz Perez.
What if many of our greatest minds who have a unique superpower for linchpin innovations spanning many fields are today wasting away behind bars? And worse, what if one of the main culprits were our very schools who are today ignoring the science of reading and are therefore today preparing the next generation of children with this unique superpower of innovation for a life of shame and incarceration? I am here to speak to you about dyslexia, literacy, and how brilliant children become incarcerated, and how we can rather release these children into the world for good. And let us begin with the words of Dr. Maya Angelou, who said, "The elimination of illiteracy is as serious to our history as the abolition of slavery." You know, many years ago while living in Thailand, I heard the most beautiful proverb that said, "A heart can only be won with another heart." I offer mine. You know, my courage was not truly measured by the intense confusion and rage I had when a grown man burned a cigarette on my knee when I was just 6 years old. No, my courage wasn't tested the day that I had to throw a butcher knife at my mother's boyfriend to protect her from being hurt by him. No, the day by which all days would test my bravery was a day in first grade when my teacher, Mrs. Wilson, with her red bouffant hair and freckles dotted across her cheeks, told us to get out a piece of paper and write 1 to 10 to prepare for a spelling test. For starters, not clearly understanding her directions, I numbered my paper laterally, side by side, as opposed to horizontally, as one would do to prepare for a spelling test. My numbers and my letters all very backwards. 2 common features of dyslexia. But my teacher, Mrs. Wilson, was not trained to see it. And when she began to walk around and check all of our work, she finally approached me and she looked at my paper. And with a tone of disgust and a scowl on her face that I can still see in my mind today, our eyes met. And she said, "Are you stupid? Not another one of you." And Mrs. Wilson's words came true. I couldn't learn to read as the other kids, no matter how hard I tried, year after year after year, even in special education classrooms. So it continues in our schools with our dyslexic children who go unscreened and undiagnosed, therefore never receiving even the possibility of proper reading remediation. Brene Brown says that stories are data with a soul. About 1 in 5 of us have dyslexia, We are certainly not all the same, but it is a neurobiological difference of the brain that makes reading and other areas of learning very difficult. It doesn't go away, and it is not corrected by glasses. But the real tragedy here, the real story, is that 65% of us never graduate from high school. And half of the youth in drug and alcohol rehabilitation programs have dyslexia. And 60%, and some research shows that it could be up to 70% of youth in corrections have dyslexia. Now, we know where too many of these children end up. A study out of Texas revealed that 80% of their whole prison population were functionally illiterate. But watch this. They screened one prison in particular just for dyslexia. Almost half of the whole prison had it. Now, is that a fluke, or would we find similar numbers to all those incarcerated? Is it any doubt as to why almost 90% of suicide notes have dyslexic type spellings on them? The data is compelling. The first benchmark of intelligence is reading. And when that becomes a space of systemic despair, the emotional consequences are often a lifetime of shame. Gershon Kaufman said it best. He's a psychologist and shame researcher. He said that people who cannot read or have a difficulty learning how to read or don't read well, they experience the same levels of shame as those who've engaged in incest. But allow me to frame it in a different way. I was about 9, and my father bought a brand new computer and a small desk. And as soon as it was all set up, he said, "Do not play by that computer." And as he headed to work the next day, I walked straight into the computer room to play on that fun new spinning chair. Moments later, while I'm spinning with my arms flailing in the air, I tumbled over the desk, the small desk, and the monitor until it came crashing down on the floor. Hours later, my dad came home from work and he's sitting in the computer room, and I'm sitting on an old, ugly brown couch with clammy hands, waiting to get it. Now, whoever raised you probably had a special name for you. Your name is Marcus, but your mother called you, Bootsy, perhaps. Well, my dad used to call me Kiddo. And I'm on that couch looking at my feet when I hear those final footsteps walk out to me. And now I'm looking at his feet and my feet. And do you know what my dad did to me? He picked me up and held me tight and said, "Don't worry about it, kiddo. I can buy another computer." What does this story have to do with dyslexia? Absolutely everything. What is proven by the shame researchers, perhaps intuitively. You cannot reach any potential in hiding. It's a safe space or a grace in real time plus bravery that removes shame. And our current school systems have sent and are sending millions, yes, millions of our children into a lifetime of shame and hiding by not teaching them to read the way they learn. This epidemic is a mass production of non-readers and low achievers. And the economics data reveal the filthy truth. That is that we are more willing to spend money to put illiterate Americans in prison than we are in teaching children to read the way they learn. And what is most disturbing of all of this is that for many, many decades, there has been research-based curriculum that can move almost all dyslexic children forward in their reading. But schools refuse to use it due to old or outdated policies with little to no mandatory training on dyslexia in the teacher accreditation process. Who can blame the teachers? You see, it's not that children are suffering from dyslexia. It's that teachers are suffering from dysteachia, as the leader in the field likes to put it. And there are very expensive private learning centers in every major city that have a virtual 100% success rate in remediating children with dyslexia using this research-based multisensory method. These methods must be made accessible and used in the public schools immediately. Children are suffering while adults are fumbling and deciding what to do. And we should not be shocked to find that among our communities of color, children with learning disabilities experience much higher rates of school disciplinary action and even higher rates of school dropout. Now, who in our society is suffering from extreme, disproportionate incarceration rates? You know the answer. There's simply a deep relationship to getting your child's reading needs met and your income. Maybe this is why George Bush I was right when he said that reading is the new civil right. Because if you cannot read, you cannot be educated. And if you cannot be educated, you will not succeed. How many schools are really prepping kids for a lifetime of shame, crime, and yes, incarceration by not teaching them to read the way they learn? Reading is the new civil right, and dyslexia needs to become intertwined with our national conversations on race, inequality, and the school to prison pipeline. And what's so peculiar is that schools do not screen for hearing problems, or the schools screen for hearing problems, they screen for vision problems, they even screen for lice, but they do not screen for dyslexia, an issue that affects 1 in 5 kids. How many children have been passed through the system, unscreened, undiagnosed, passed as behaviorally untreatable, believing they are not smart, unfit for a dream, when one of the main things that's not smart in this equation are the policies on dyslexia that are in place? Thank you.